With American sports finally returning, make sure to check out Phenom Media on all platforms for daily original content from the brightest young minds in sports. Despite months of ugly arguments between the players and owners, we are finally ready to start the 60-game MLB season. While 60 is less than half of the traditional 162, we are thankfully getting baseball after it looked very uncertain for a while. In this video, we will give 60-game record predictions with quick explanations for all 30 MLB teams, break down each playoff matchup, and crown a World Series champion at the end. The timestamps for each team will be included in the description, so feel free to check those out. Keep in mind also that each team plays 40 games against their own division and 20 against the teams from the other league's corresponding division. Starting at the bottom of the AL East will be the Baltimore Orioles. Baltimore is certain to not do very much this season, but it'll be very interesting to see how many moonshots Gleyber Torres can hit off of them.
Right-handed deal, swung on, hit in the air to deep left. That ball is high, it is far, it is gone. It is Gleyber Day. And like a good Gleyber, Torres is the...
But in all seriousness, the rebuild is still in full effect, and a shortened season won't bring Baltimore anywhere near the playoffs, finishing with a record of 19-41. One spot out from Baltimore will be the Blue Jays, who won't be playing in Rogers Center this year. Toronto is still too young to be a threat this year, but their young core of Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Biggio, and Austin Martin will certainly show flashes of what Toronto could be in the future, especially if their pitching improves. 25-35 for the Blue Jays. At the third spot in the AL East will be the Red Sox. Boston's baseball squad will likely use this year as a down year to build up for another competitive campaign in 2021. The Red Sox still have a lethal lineup of young studs Xander Bogaerts and Rafael Devers, along with JD Martinez. However, just 2 years removed from a World Series and an improving rotation and bullpen, don't be surprised if Boston does end up being competitive this season, but they'll probably settle for a record around 31-29. Arguably the best probable second place team in baseball this year is the Tampa Bay Rays. Last year's breakout season only sets Tampa up for more success this year. Their deep roster and rich prospect pool make them even more dangerous in the short season. Tampa's shutdown pitching and overlooked bats of Austin Meadows and Brandon Lowe will have Tampa returning to the playoffs in 2020 and possibly giving teams more than just a scare. 41-19 record for Tampa this season. A top 3 squad in baseball this year named the New York Yankees will barely beat out the Rays for the AL East division title this season. The Yankees were only 2 games away from the World Series last year and are just as good, if not better, this year, as their lineup is one of the scariest in the league. This lineup features Aaron Judge, Gleyber Torres, DJ LeMahieu, and Gary Sanchez. Add this to Garrett Cole, and the Yankees are the team to beat in the AL. The Yankees will finish with a record of about 43-17. Moving on to the AL Central, the Tigers are almost a lock to finish last. Like last year, Detroit doesn't have much to look forward to this season, as they have an abysmal lineup and just one decent starter in Matt Boyd, as well as a somewhat reliable Joe Jimenez. This really isn't gonna get Detroit anywhere near the playoffs. However, they do have a glimmer of hope for the future with top prospects Casey Mize and Spencer Torkelson showcasing unreal potential. Above them is another rebuilding team slowly rising in the Kansas City Royals. KC will show improvement in 2020, but they don't have enough to be serious contenders. With the emergence of young sluggers Hunter Dozier and Jorge Soler, as well as some promising arms in Brady Singer and AC Lacy on the way up, something interesting could be brewing in KC. However, they'll finish with a record of 23-37. At the middle spot of the AL Central, the year for Cleveland is coming as speculation over the status of superstar Francisco Lindor hangs over. Even with that, Cleveland's pitching is still dominant with a formidable lineup, and it's hard to imagine Cleveland falling off too far. But with just 2 wildcards, they'll miss out on October again with a record of 35-25. Above them is one of 2020's rising squads in the Chicago White Sox. The long and painful rebuild finally shows some serious progress as the young and exciting Southsiders make a big jump in 2020. The entire team is filled with young talent across all 9 positions, and although it's maybe too early for a serious playoff run, just making it there would be a big step in the right direction for Chicago. They'll finish with a solid record of 36-25. At the top of the AL Central this season will be the Minnesota Twins. The Bomba squad is back to match more dingers in 2020 by adding even more firepower to an already elite lineup filled with power. With Jose Barrios only getting better, Jake Odorizzi and Taylor Rogers coming off career mere years, the Twins have a real shot to finally get past the Yankees in October and maybe even bring a World Series to the Twin Cities with a final record of 39-21. Moving on to the AL West, the Mariners will be the worst team there. Expectations on Seattle are low this year, as other than starters Yusei Kikuchi and Marco Gonzalez, there isn't much talent on the big league club. Though Seattle won't have enough for the playoffs this year, top prospects Jared Kelenic and Julio Rodriguez are on the way up and the future looks promising. They finish at 19-41. Above Seattle is an odd team that goes by the Rangers. Texas is a hard team to get a good read on this season. While the rotation looks to be very effective with Mike Minor and Lance Lynn being joined by Corey Kluber, the lineup is somewhat decent with Joey Gallo's power bat and consistent guys like Ronald Guzman, Danny Santana, and Willie Calhoun, as well as the promise of Nick Solak. However, the bullpen outside of Jose Leclerc will be a problem, and with a lack of pitching depth and being stuck in a tough division, Texas doesn't have enough to make a return to the playoffs. The Rangers end with a record of 23-37. At the third spot in the AL West will be a 500 hovering Angels team. The Angels can tear the cover off the ball with two of the best hitters in baseball, but pitching is extremely valuable in the shortened season. Shohei Ohtani can't pitch every day. Rendon, Trout, and others will keep the Angels in the hunt, but without much firepower on the mound, it'll be a struggle for them to reach October. The Oakland A's will take the second spot in the competitive AL West. After winning 97 games in the past 2 years, Oakland is more determined than ever to finally make a playoff run. Their lineup is potent with Matt Chapman and Olsen, as well as a breakout all-star in Marcus Semien and slugger Chris Davis. With a young but impressive bullpen led by Liam Hendricks, Oakland looks like a complete team that should easily make the playoffs. However, when they get there, the question is how long can they last? They can finish with a very solid record of 37-24. The Astros are not surprisingly the most controversial team in the MLB, and the pressure is on. Even with the scandal, this team is still loaded with talent, as Alex Bregman, Justin Verlander, Yordan Alvarez, Michael Brantley, George Springer, and Ryan Presley all return. They also bring back Carlos Correa and Jose Altuve, along with Roberto Osuna, Zach Greinke, and Lance McCullers. The Astros should finish with a first place spot in the AL West at 41-19. As for the playoff seeding, the Yankees will take the first seed with the Astros right behind them, followed by the Twins, and then the Rays and the A's will face off in the wildcard matchup. Catchy. Now to the other half of the MLB called the National League, once again going from east to west and bottom to top. The last seed in the NL East will more likely than not go to the Miami Marlins. Miami is starting out another season on a weak note. The rebuild still has a long way to go, and we shouldn't expect them to contend for a while. But on the bright side, the hitters aren't a total embarrassment like they have been showing in recent years, and with their improving farm system, they may not be the joke of the MLB moving forward. However, that's if Derek Jeter figures out how to properly own a team. 16-44. Fairly above Miami are the Philadelphia Phillies. More money, more problems. The Phillies have MLB's 6th highest payroll this season and still have massive holes on the team, despite popular belief that they are contenders. The lineup still has bats like Bryce Harper, Gene Segura, JT Realmuto, and more. But the major issue is their pitching. The starting rotation starts out fine with Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler leading the way, but beyond them are regressing guys like Jake Arrieta that will hold them back. Phillies' bullpen is also lackluster, as their most reliable reliever almost had a 3.0 ERA, which isn't great for a closer. Pitching is even more important now, and with the lack of it in Philly, they missed the playoffs at 27-33. And now we move up to Bryce Harper's former team, the Nationals, who also won a World Series last season, in case you forgot. The defending champs go into 2020 with eyes set on the playoffs despite losing Anthony Rendon to free agency. However, young phenom Juan Soto will anchor the lineup this year with the help of consistent guys like Trey Turner and Adam Eaton, who will keep the lineup solid. But if Washington is going to make the playoffs, pitching will be a big reason why. They have Max Scherzer, who is arguably a top 3 pitcher in baseball, as well as Steven Strasburg and Patrick Corbin, who are both in their primes. The bullpen is solid with Sean Doolittle and Daniel Hudson, but besides those two, they may have some trouble in later innings. However, with championship experience, the Nationals will do just enough as they get the second wildcard spot in the NL. A 33-27 is our projected finish for the Nationals. Another wildcard team from the NL East is the New York Mets. The Mets are one of the most interesting teams to watch this season. season. After years of offensive struggles, the Mets finally have guys like Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, J.D. Davis, and Ahmed Rosario, along with Wilson Ramos and Michael Conforto for run support. The rotation does lose Noah Syndergaard, but they still have Jacob deGrom as their ace, along with Marcus Stroman and Rick Porcello to eat up some innings later in games. The bullpen was terrible last year, but with how bad they were last year, it's very hard to imagine them getting any worse. With the signings of Dellin Betances and the emerging arm of Seth Lugo, the Mets can be a very complete team this year. If they live up to the hype, New York will have 2 playoff teams this year, including a 36-24 Mets squad. The first place spot in the NL East will fall to the Atlanta Braves as they enter 2020 as the second best team in the NL behind the Dodgers. They have a young and exciting lineup of Ozzie Albies, Ronald Acuña, and Freddie Freeman, as well as some other solid bats. The pitching staff is also interesting as Mike Soroka returns, as well as a full season of Sean Newcomb and a veteran presence of Cole Hamels. The bullpen looks to be very strong as Will Smith, along with other effective setup guys, makes the Braves very well-rounded. It's assumed the Braves will be a playoff lock in 2020, but after going out in the NLDS 2 seasons in a row and not many big changes to the roster, the pressure is on Atlanta to make some noise. 38-22 for them. In the NL Central, the Pittsburgh Pirates are projected to be the last place squad in the division, and after a stretch last year where they lost 24 out of their last 28 games, rebuild mode was activated. The most notable things the Pirates will do is get rid of Josh Bell and possibly Brian Reynolds at the trade deadline. This will be the start of a long rebuild and will show where things are headed in the future for this 18-42 bound team. Ahead of them is the Milwaukee Brewers, who are putting their hope into 2 players this season: Christian Yelich and Josh Hader. Now keep in mind, this is a team sport. Having only 2 people that you can rely on isn't going to cut it. However, they still have a solid lineup and established bats like Lorenzo Cain and Ryan Braun. However, the Brewers actually lost a lot of production from guys like Mike Moustakas and Yasmani Grandal, with the pitching not looking convincing at all, as well as having basically 1 solid starter and bullpen guy. The 25-35 bound Brewers will take a huge step backwards. The St. Louis Cardinals will be a middle-of-the-pack team in this division as they made an unexpected push last year to the NLCS. Paul Goldschmidt is looking to bounce back from a disappointing season last year and is supported by all-star Paul DeJong, as well as emerging bats in Colton Wong and Tommy Edman. St. Louis will get their hits. On the mound, Jack Flaherty has proven to be a solid ace for a solid rotation. Not to mention, the bullpen is decent enough to keep St. Louis in the playoff hunt, but they don't have enough superstar power to make the playoffs. However, their 32-28 record proves that they won't be out for long. With the exact same situation as the Cardinals in the same division, we have the Chicago Cubs. David Ross replaces Joe Madden as the manager, as Javier Baez, Anthony Rizzo, and Chris Bryant will lead a solid lineup this season, with Wilson Contreras and Kyle Schwarber tagging along too. However, the make or break for Chicago, like many other teams, is their pitching. They have 4 solid veteran starters as well as closer Craig Kimbrell, who's had success. However, they all need to be at their best. With so many unknowns on the teams and reliant on a lot of players to bounce back, it will be very difficult for everything to go right for the Cubbies. So like the Cardinals, they finish at 32-28 and barely miss out on a wildcard spot. The winners of the NL Central will now, of course, be the Cincinnati Reds. After years of struggle, the Reds have put together an intriguing team that can be competitive in 2020. The lineup looks to be dangerous as breakout slugger Eugenio Suarez joins Mike Moustakas and Nick Castellanos along with other young bats. The rotation seems to be effective with Luis Castillo, Trevor Bauer, and Sonny Gray leading their rotation. The bullpen is a little suspect as Raciel Iglesias and Pedro Strop are coming off of down years. While there are still some pieces to be added, Cincy finally has a solid squad on its hands that will make them baseball's most shocking team of 2020, going from the bottom of the division to the top, winning the NL Central title for the first time since 2012 at 36-24. Moving on to the NL West, where the worst team in this division is the San Francisco Giants. It's the end of an era in San Francisco as they lost franchise legends Bruce Bochy and Madison Bumgarner. This year will be the beginning of a rebuild for the Giants as mostly role players fill their roster. There is some promise towards the future with prospects like Joey Bart, but even with some young talent, hiring Gabe Kapler to lead the rebuild doesn't look good at all and could very well prolong a period of struggle in San Fran even after a decade of 3 championships. 21-39 record for them. At the 4th spot are the Colorado Rockies. You can hit the ball all you want, but if you can't pitch just as good, you're in trouble. That will be Colorado's main problem this year, just like last year. The hitting advantage in Coors Field will aid their lineup, which is filled with sluggers like Charlie Blackmon, David Dow, Trevor Story, and Nolan Arenado. But last year, only one of their 5 starters had an ERA under 4. John Gray can't pitch every day, and there are no signs guys like Cal Freeland or Furman Marquez can rebound enough to be effective. Without any reliable relievers, Colorado is going to have major issues keeping the opponent's scores down. The prime aspect of pitching being so important in a shortened season, Colorado will more likely than not underperform again this season at 24-36. In the middle of this division are the San Diego Padres. A long dead period of Padres baseball seems to finally be coming to an end as their bounty of top prospects begins to showcase their skills in the MLB. These young guys include Fernando Tatis Jr., Francisco Maya, as well as a plethora of young pitching talent in Chris Paddock and more minor leaguers. There were still impactful veterans on the squad as well, such as Manny Machado, the underrated Tommy Pham, and the experience of Eric Hosmer. In the rotation, some average guys should have decent production. And with standout closer Kirby Yates owning the 9th inning, the Padres have a solid squad. However, they are still too young to make a playoff push and will come up short. But signs of major progress, some serious talent moving up the system, and the potential to make a big trade or signing this season will have the Padres back in the playoff hunt next season. They will finish with a record of 38-32. The second place team in the NL West will be a decent Diamondbacks squad. After seemingly deciding to scrap plans of success after trading Zach Greinke last year, Arizona flipped the switch with a red-hot second half to the 2019 season. Despite not making the playoffs, the Diamondbacks added 2 high-quality veteran players in Starling Marte and Madison Bumgarner. Starting will only improve an Arizona lineup that already featured Ketel Marte, Eduardo Escobar, and a solid David Peralta. Adding Bumgarner to pair with Robbie Ray along with the sneaky good Zach Gallen makes the starters seem quite good. An effective Archie Bradley will likely be their closer for the season, along with Andrew Chafin as their setup man. Arizona is a solid team coming into this year, but in such a competitive wildcard race, the Diamondbacks will be just a few pieces away from a playoff spot and end up finishing 500 heading into an interesting offseason. The Dodgers will be the undisputed NL West champs this year, and this is as simple as it gets in terms of expectations. World Series or bust. They are easily the best in the NL West and honestly the best in the NL altogether. Last year, the Dodgers won 106 games and were eliminated by the Nationals, but that team is still intact and only got better with the addition of Mookie Betts. Add these guys to reigning MVP Cody Bellinger, Justin Turner, Max Muncy, Walker Buehler, and Clayton Kershaw, and the Dodgers are loaded. Along with an amazing bullpen, this is the most complete team in the NL and is the favorite to return to the World Series for the 3rd time in 4 years and maybe even win it for the first time since 1988. As for the playoff seeding, the Dodgers will finish first, followed by the Braves and Reds. The Mets and Nationals will battle it out to play LA in the wildcard game. In this shortened season of just 60 games, it's safe to say really anybody can make the playoffs, but in this modified schedule, teams that are presumed to struggle will likely aim for the 2021 first overall pick rather than make the playoffs. Even for those teams still trying, there are clubs that are head and shoulders above everyone else. With that being said, here are the postseason predictions with analysis for every round, along with the MVP for each series. In the AL wildcard round, the Tampa Bay Rays will face off against the A's, and the Rays come out for the 2nd straight year as Tampa's depth is the deciding factor. While Oakland's lineup is full of production, they won't match Tampa's bats against Sean Manaea, assuming the Rays start Charlie Morton or Blake Snell. The game will be low scoring and close early, but as the bullpens enter, the Rays' ability to hit all the way down the lineup as well as have multiple quality options on the mound in the later innings will be the difference. Austin Meadows is the MVP for the Rays in a 6-3 victory. Over in the NL, the Mets will face off against the Nats. This game might be the most epic pitchers duel in recent history. Assuming they're healthy, there is no doubt we will see Jacob deGrom start for the Mets and Max Scherzer for the Nationals, who are both top 3 pitchers in baseball. Obviously, however, teams have to score to win. With Washington being not nearly as deep in the lineup as New York, the Mets, in their home park, will find a big hit late off Washington's subpar bullpen and advance to the NLDS as deGrom goes the distance. Mets 2, Nationals 0. As for the divisional round in the AL, the Astros face off against the Minnesota Twins. Houston and Minnesota's rosters are very evenly matched and can hit 1 through 9. They also each have 2 starters capable of dominating a game. Each has a shutdown closer and reliable setup guys in the bullpen. However, the difference comes in championship experience. The Astros team has been to the World Series twice in the last 3 years while winning it in 2017 and have won in the pressure of the playoffs. The Twins' only recent playoff runs in 2017 and 2019 have ended at the hands of the Yankees without even winning a game. Due to this, the Astros come up big when it matters and eliminate the Twins, but Minnesota does make it a competitive 5-game series. George Springer will be the MVP for the Astros in this series. The next matchup in the divisional round will be a matchup between the New York Yankees and the Tampa Bay Rays. This is the financial portrayal of David versus Goliath. The division champion Yankees, with baseball's highest payroll, taking on the wildcard Rays, who have the 4th lowest payroll in the league. Despite the massive gap in money on the field, these two teams are equally talented. The Yankees have the best lineup in baseball, as every guy 1 through 9 is a serious threat to get a hold of one. Meanwhile, the Rays' biggest strength comes on the mound with a 3-headed monster of a rotation and a top 5 bullpen in the league. While pitching usually wins out in the playoffs, Tampa lacks a true superstar hitter that strikes total fear into an opponent. New York has multiple guys that can do just that, in Judge, Torres, Stanton, and Sanchez. Tampa's pitching will keep them alive, but will not get enough run support to topple the Yankees as the Bronx Bombers head to the ALCS for the 3rd time in 4 years. DJ LeMahieu will win the MVP in this series for the Yankees as New York wins in 5 games. Cincinnati's long-awaited return to the playoffs starts out against the 3-time NL East champion Atlanta Braves. Each lineup can hit all the way down the order, both for power and contact. Both have established bullpens that have the ability to consistently finish games off, but starting pitching is the difference in this series. The Braves' rotation is a bit of a concern, as outside of Mike Soroka, no guy was consistently reliable last season, which is a necessity in the playoffs. Cincinnati, on the other hand, features a deadly trio in the rotation with an electric Luis Castillo, as well as experienced playoff pitchers Trevor Bauer and Sonny Gray. The Braves' rotation is not as experienced as Cincinnati's, other than Mike Soroka, who has pitched 1 playoff game, and a 39-year-old Cole Hamels. Considering the Reds' potent lineup, Atlanta is not going to get by with just 2 reliable guys, while Cincinnati has at least 3. Each team will steal a game on the road while winning 1 at home, but in Game 5, the Reds step up big time behind Trevor Bauer on the mound and eliminate the Braves as Atlanta is knocked out in the NLDS for the 3rd straight year, while Cincinnati's sensational run continues to the NLCS. Trevor Bauer wins the MVP for the Reds in their amazing run as they beat the Braves in 5 games. Over to the other series in the NL, the LA Dodgers take on the New York Mets. The Dodgers, after last year's shocking NLDS exit, have no intention of going out early again. And while the Mets aren't an easy out, they won't have nearly enough to upend the Dodgers. While both lineups are deep, 2 MVPs, Cody Bellinger and Mookie Betts, far outweigh Peter Alonso and Jeff McNeil. Although the Mets have the best pitcher in the game, Jacob deGrom won't be able to pitch until at least Game 3. Without him, the Dodgers will roll the Mets out of LA in the first 2 games easily behind the arms of Walker Buehler and Clayton Kershaw. While deGrom helps the Mets avoid a sweep with a Game 3 win, the Dodgers know they can't risk another do-or-die Game 5, and they prevent that by knocking out the Mets in 4 and returning to the NLCS while New York's impressive season ends. The MVP of this series is Mookie Betts for the Dodgers as they move on to the NLCS. This NLCS matchup, featuring 2 incredibly different teams, looks very intriguing. It features the team that was expected to be here in the Dodgers and the team no one expected to be here in the Reds. LA enters this series having won the NL West the last 8 seasons and having reached the World Series twice since 2017. The Reds haven't even made the playoffs prior to the season since 2012 and haven't even come close to the Fall Classic since 1990. These differences will translate into this series in terms of talent and experience. Much of the Reds roster has never even been on a competitive team, let alone a postseason one. The Dodgers, of course, have been to the playoffs and in this year feature tons of experience and talent throughout the roster. The upstart Reds will not be able to stop LA's run for their first championship in 2 decades. The Dodgers dominate in LA, steal Game 3, and allow the Reds a consolidating win in Game 4 before taking them out in Game 5 as baseball's most surprising team of 2020 bows out short of the World Series, while the Dodgers win the pennant for the 3rd time in 4 years. The MVP of the NLCS is Cody Bellinger as they move on to the World Series in 5 games. This is the series every Yankee fan wants, and they're going to get it. The Astros infamously orchestrated an elaborate scheme to steal signs from opposing catchers to give their hitters an unfair advantage throughout their championship run in 2017, in which they eliminated New York in the ALCS in 7 close games that year. The Yankees have not forgotten that at least an American League pennant was stolen from them. After last year's crushing defeat in the ALCS to the same Astros on a walk-off home run in Game 6, New York is coming for Houston's head this time around. The Yankees, who own home field advantage, take the first 2 games at home behind playoff performers Garrett Cole and Masahiro Tanaka. They are able to steal a game in Texas, which they proved they could do last season. And with 2 chances to end the series in the Bronx, the Yankees end it quick, powered by their big bats and the dominant bullpen. The Bronx Bombers get their revenge on Houston and advance to their first World Series since 2009. Gleyber Torres takes the MVP as the Yankees move on to the World Series to take on the Los Angeles Dodgers. The World Series is the biggest event in baseball, and this year's edition should see the Yankees against the Dodgers. If it weren't for the Astros, this would have been the matchup in the 2017 World Series, but the 3-year delay only makes this series more entertaining. Those 3 years, each side has added a Cy Young caliber ace in Walker Buehler and Garrett Cole, a former MVP in Mookie Betts and Gonzalo Stanton, exciting young prospects in Gavin Lux and Gleyber Torres, and new all-stars in Max Muncy and DJ LeMahieu. These new players added to those left from 2017 include Cody Bellinger, Clayton Kershaw, Aaron Judge, Aroldis Chapman, and more, make these teams very equal on paper. But here's the difference in this series. The Dodgers have been to the World Series. Most of these Yankees have not. This experience factor will play a role early on as the Dodgers take the first 2 games at home behind the arms of Buehler and Kershaw. The Yankees hold down home field thanks to their bats, but not after the Dodgers win a crucial Game 5 as Buehler dominates again. And with the chance to finish it at home, the Dodgers, through timely hitting and clutch pitching, finally take the final step, finishing off the Yankees in 6 and winning their 7th franchise championship in the first since 1988. Walker Buehler takes the World Series MVP for the Dodgers as they win the 2020 World Series in 6 games. Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel, and definitely turn on those notifications for much more content coming soon.